Okay, so we are live. And while I did anything new. All right, so welcome. My name is Anita Adefuye, and I have in the room with me Kofo. And this morning we are bringing a monthly career Q&A series session live to you. But we're going to do a bit of a different focus this morning, and we will be focusing a little bit on women, mothers, um, and just playing in career spaces and what that looks like for us as women and the challenges that we tend to go through. So without much ado, I will just tell a little bit about myself and what my career journey has been, especially here in Canada. And I'll have Kofu also talk about hers. And then we'll just sort of share, part of that journey. Um, Sound like a plan? Okay. Can we do that? We can do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, just very quickly for myself, like I mentioned, my name is Anita Adefuye, and I am a policy practitioner. I've been in the world of policy for over a decade and a half now with my career. Yeah, I can't believe it. I know we always talking about over a decade in my career. And in the last couple of years, I've worked in Canada, I've worked with the federal provincial government, and I'm currently in a PhD program. I'm doing my PhD in public policy. And as a result of that PhD, I'm working very closely with the municipal government to help figure out some of the issues they're having, which I cannot speak to yet at the moment. But when the time comes, we'll definitely all hear about it. And so really I've been mostly in the public sector, but prior to that, I actually was in the private sector um, when I was working back home in Nigeria. And so for the most part, I've engaged in policy formulation and policy implementation, and then ventured off into strategic planning and strategy execution, development and execution. That has been the core of most of my career and working life. And I currently now own my own business, Advanced African Coaching Company, helping immigrated professionals to advance in their careers without all the overwhelm, especially immigrated professionals. I mentioned already. Um, but just in a very quick nutshell, I'm also an author and a speaker, and there are a ton of other things that I do, but let's just stay focused on that for now. So Kofo, do you want to just share a little bit about what your journey has been?
For sure. Just an FYI, I cannot top that. So just in case anybody is expecting me to top, I can't. I can't top that. My name is Kofo Odunjo. I'm an HR practitioner, and I've been in my field for it's not up to a decade. I know that for sure. It's not up to a decade. A little bit close, but not up to a decade. I have worked in the public sector as well as the private sector. I'm still currently in the public sector, so I'm a talent consultant in Government of Saskatchewan. I am also an author, so I write fiction. So just in case anybody wants to write something and they don't know how to, you can let me know. I write fictions mostly. What else? What else? And I'm here with my one and only sister. I'm here with my one and only sister Anita today to just talk about women in career and how women thrive in the workplace and stuffs around that area. So thank you.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Kofo. Yes, we're both authors. If you roll with us, maybe you write a book. That's amazing. I know you can definitely totally top that. Did you mention that you also write scripts?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
write script too.
Lots of things that we both get ourselves involved in.
Yes.
Okay, anyway, so this month we celebrated Mother's Day. And even though, yes, we try to do this every month where we just give professionals an opportunity to ask us good questions, especially immigrated professionals to Canada. And the reason being that we know that sometimes there are a lot of questions people want to ask. They need a safe space to ask those questions. No question is silly, no matter how much you tell people that no question is ever silly or stupid, they still shy away from asking questions. So we started doing this as a safe space and it's a free session, right? So we're doing this as a safe space to just give people the opportunity to come with their questions, especially as it relates to their career navigation. And because we celebrated Mother's Day this month, I'm a mother, before is a mother to be. We're calling it forth. She just got married recently. Her marriage is still less than a year old. So um, this is, I mean, we had a life before we all journeyed into this space of marriage and motherhood, right? And we can talk about that. I mean, for me, for instance, I finished university at the age of 21, I think. All I know is that as at the age of 22, I was on my youth service corps and all of that in Nigeria. For those who are in Nigeria, they would understand what that means, right? And so that was pretty young. And at that age, I just sort of really been in the career space. From then up until now, I just started venturing into business. Um, and so as we celebrate Mother's Day, we're thinking about, as women and as mothers, some of the challenges that we go through. And I just want to even very quickly say this. I was the first when I got my dream job, the first day I was supposed to resume on that dream job was the day I took a pregnancy test and realized I was pregnant with my first child. Imagine showing up on the first day of your job to and then you're showing up, you're all sweaty, not because you ran or anything, but because that was part of the reaction that my body was going through. I was constantly sweating profusely, and then I'm showing up and I'm always sweaty. I'm talking, I'm panting because for some reason it was how my body was reacting to the pregnancy. And so I took the test. I had sensed I was pregnant, and then I decided to take the test. And I don't know why I took the test on that very morning, but I took the test on that Monday morning. I can never forget. It was February 11th or so, because the next day or 2 days after was my birthday. I took the test and voila, surprise, right? I can't even begin to tell you what that almost did to me mentally. And I can't imagine that there are a lot of women who sometimes they feel like they're showing up into spaces. And as they're showing up into spaces, uh, uh, um, they feel the sense to want to hide the fact that I'm pregnant or I'm a mother. And I mean, understandably so, because we do have some research that showed that mothers are way less likely to be hired and promoted and receive lower salaries, right? Compared to people who are not mothers. And then with the same qualification, and then when you compare that to even to men, right? So when you really think about that, imagine actually let's do a bit of a role play. If you're in my shoes, what would you do?
Uh, I honestly, what, the resilient part of me is gonna say I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to keep forging forward with it. But then the scared part of me would say, oh my God, I wouldn't know what to do, honestly. I wouldn't know what to do. But if I'm
Yeah.
gonna go with the stubborn quote and unquote part of me, I would just
Mm,
wing it. It's
yeah.
we is what it is what it is. I'm pregnant.
It
Yeah,
is what it
I'm gonna
is.
walk.
And that's what I
It is what
did.
it is.
Honestly, I just I winged it, right? And that's what I
Yeah.
did. I winged it because the truth is this is
Did you
something
have
that
a
I've dreamt of.
conversation with your manager?
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, okay. Because I
Oh,
can
I winged it.
imagine.
I winged it for a bit. Like, I mean, the people who are paying attention quickly picked that something is not right with you,
Mm.
right? I was still trying to wear my heels, and I mean, it wasn't like I was showing or anything. It obviously was still in its early weeks, right? But somehow my body was already reacting seriously to it. I was constantly nauseated. I couldn't eat certain foods. I was avoiding certain people because good scent was appalling to me. So I was avoiding, if you had like heavy scented products, I'm staying away from you. So people who are very attentive were observing. But here's the interesting thing. Months later, after that experience, I heard about somebody else who was in my exact same position, and she decided to rescind her acceptance offer. And she said, because that was her rude awakening, that, and because also because of the kind of job, right? I was in the foreign service, and the job itself entails a lot of travel, a lot of moving your family around all through the years of your career. And so, being a woman, she decided that, you know what, that was her rude awakening to say, what am I doing? Like, I know what this career entails. I'm going to have this child 9 months from now. I don't think I have what it takes. And she stayed back. And I'm totally respect her decisions, quite frankly, right? Because the truth is, we all know where our limits are. But for me, it was that I mean, I've always wanted this and I'm not about to let this get in the way. So I winged it. I'll still try my best to show up as much as I can, but I can imagine that there are a lot of people who would show up. Now, if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, whether for some people it might not be first day on the job, it might even be a couple months into the job, but you feel like you just wanted to bank some experience hours before you get to that point. What I did was it wasn't just like I didn't even we were not assigned managers yet at that time, just again with the way the peculiarity of that job is different. So what they do is that internally they do deployments to departments. And in the course of your career, you don't just work in one department, you work across every department. So you're posted every other year to a different department, and you're posted every other year, every couple years to a different country. That's sort of how we work. When you're in the home country, you're posted to a different department. So what I did was I went to the posting department and I went to speak to the director. And I said, so here's the thing. I already know right off the bat, I'm not going to be eligible for maternity leave. But I want to be able to have this conversation in full transparency. I'm not going to take a leave of absence on the first day that I resume work. What can we do to enhance my situation? What can be done? And then he said, well, there are some departments where if you're posted, you're literally traveling like the next day. That's intense. And there are some others that if you're posted there, you're not going to get any of those action. It allows you to be here in office, just work your normal 8 to 4, maybe a couple meetings that might run late. That's maybe that's all action you'll get. And so I decided to take that instead. And I requested on compassionate grounds, can I have that instead? So for me, it's that for a lot of mothers is they feel like, when we had that ladies and rights session and somebody was talking about all or nothing, they feel like when it comes to their career, it has to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be all or something. What that meant for me is that while my colleagues were in very juicy departments, they were traveling, going to the UN, attending meetings, engaging in protocol services, meeting presidents and all of that, what it meant is that I'm there working away at more of the administrative stuff, but that's okay because it's all or something, right? I either have what I want or I have some of it, but I'm not going to settle for none of it, right? And so for a lot of mothers, sometimes we take on this idea that when it comes to our careers, it always has to be all or nothing, especially when we are coming into a new country, because in the course of our work, we've seen this a lot where a lot of women come in, a lot of families come in, and there's this unspoken natural expectation that it is the woman's career that needs to take a back burner, and then the man needs to advance, even when it makes absolutely no sense that that needs to happen. Right. So there's that cultural component. And if we can sort of even help people break some of that barrier bias towards how we see it, it might be helpful. Right. So really, that's what I did. I winged it. But one of the things that I truly did, I think can help somebody here today is that in winging it, I also was very realistic with where I found myself. And I sought people who could help me. And I was willing to take the risk. It was a risk I took because they could have actually right there and then rescinded my own offer later as well. The other lady I heard about, she decided to take off on her own. But I mean, I don't know what the protocol is or the procedure is. I didn't have maternity leave in the sense of it, right? Although eventually my director just gave me some time off. So you know what? Just book some time off, have your baby, give yourself the time you need to heal, and then come back, right? So which was really helpful because I was blessed to have somebody who was also very understanding. And this is where I'll talk to especially even men and other women who are in workplaces who hold decision powers. What are you doing to help support mothers in your workplace? Because if that person ever gave me that opportunity to just really help me navigate that season of my life and in such a way that I can hold my job, but at the same time have my baby and then take the time that I needed to heal and come back, I may never have been able to get to where I was, right? And believe me when I tell you that just because he was willing to do that, it gave me every resolve that I need to make sure that I won't let you down. And I gave it my all. And when there was now an opportunity for me to leave that department, guess what? I stayed on, right? Because I also realized that the department gave me a lot of power too. Because now you're deciding where everybody goes, right? So I decided to stay on. And then after a while, of course, whether or not you like it, after a while, you have to change departments. And when that time came, I changed departments. So for even for me, that was even the beginning of my motherhood journey with and how it was clashing, as it were, with my career. And we can even talk about it when it comes to even advancement opportunities. But
Mm-hmm.
let's turn this a little bit on you, Kofo.
Yeah.
So you just got married, right? You just got married. Do you find that maybe there are, and your husband just got into the country as well? Do you find that there are ways that you're starting to adjust yourself and the things you're saying yes to career-wise, or the things you're getting yourself involved in? Do you find you're making adjustments now that you're married versus when you were not?
Yes, but I would say that I am being strategic now.
Okay.
So I have career goals, I have career plans, I have things that I've always wanted to do. I kind of have a projection of where I want to go and how to get there. Sorry. So, but the difference between me before I got married and me now is me before I got married, I would go, go, go. I would just, I wouldn't need to strategize as much because there is nothing I'm strategizing around. But now I am thinking of a whole lot of stuffs around this newness that I found myself into, and how I can adjust my either adjust my career to fit in or adjust this newness to fit into my career. Either ways. But now I'm more strategic. So before I would think of, I've been saying I want to do some stuffs. And then now I'm thinking of I am planning, okay, if I'm going to do this before then, this might likely happen. He might likely do this. How do we make it work? So now I feel like I'm more strategic. I am being super conscious not to let one impede on the other. If that makes sense, but trying to find a balance. Trying to find a balance. And I'm so grateful that we are here where I feel like here I you kind of mentioned it a little bit where sometimes it feels like the women have no choice, but here there's a little bit of an enabling environment where the women can choose whether or not. So if you choose to stay home, that's fine. If you choose to be at work and have a little bit of balance, that's also fine. But you're not just given one choice, you are given choices, and then you can pick and choose. However, there are still some situations where, because of the home dynamic of some people, it's like they don't have a choice. They just have to. As a woman, your career has to change once you get married. You have to try and remain constant, or try and remain the same for a while, because you're going to have kids and you're going to go on mat leave and all those changes. So you try to remain. I am trying, God help me, I am trying not to remain constant. I will only remain constant if there is a need to. If there's a need to, I will remain the balance. But if I have the opportunity to do more, I would definitely do more with God's grace.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's good. That's great. And yeah, I hear you when you're saying that, trying to just make sure that you're not because there's a piece of you that still needs to stay true to who you are, right?
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes sometimes it feels as though, especially for a lot of women, it feels as though if they choose the path that they know they want to go on, then it means that they are being less of a mother, or they are being less
Mm,
of a wife. And we
mhm,
don't want that for them, right? And
mhm.
so
You
it's
know
a
that either ways, there is always something. Either ways, even if they choose the career, all of a sudden it means that they're being less of a mom. If they choose the mom, it means that they're not being true to themselves. They're not being career. They're not. It's
Mhm.
either you can't win with this thing. Like,
So how do we make
there-
sure that we win? We want to make sure that we win, right?
because
Because
either one you do, there's somebody's gonna say something. Something is gonna
yeah, no,
happen,
no,
and
no. And that's fine.
whew, yeah.
People can see, people will see. It is up to people to
Hmm.
see. But I think that it is what we are saying to ourselves. That's what really then
Yeah,
matters. That's
for sure.
where, and I think that it's okay for us to admit that I want to be the best that I can be as a mother, but I also have this drive and this passion. And quite frankly, I personally believe that we'll be doing a disservice to God who created us if we choose to be anything less than what He
Less
created
than
us to
what?
be. Those
Yes.
passion,
Yeah.
those drive, those ambition, they're there for a reason, right? There are many times that I ask myself, like, why can't I just be a little less desirous of,
A,
and I
a
asked
little less
that.
ambitious.
Maybe, yeah, right.
Please
But the
not.
truth is, those things are there for a reason. And I don't
Yeah.
think that's I don't want to stand before God one day and then talk about how I did not trade with every talent that I was given, right?
Mm,
And so
mm,
it's that conversation to say, in what way can I be true to myself as a mother, but also at the same time be true to the very things that I know that I have what it takes to do, and just show up in my most authentic self per time, right? So
yeah.
let's even talk about even now career advancement and career growth and just
Mm,
even applying ourselves. Because I hear a lot of people, because even just as we're talking right now, right, with everything that we've just talked about in trying to be true to who you are as a woman, as a mother, as anything. Let's talk about the foundation. Let's start with the foundation of, you're not even a married person, because I'm sure there are people who be watching this who are not married, right? And I believe, personally, personal opinion, I believe that if you meet me as a man, right, and you see me very ambitious, and you see me very driven, and you see me as a goal getter who just, I'll set my goals and pursuing them, I'm going after them, results driven, solution outcomes. I'm that kind of person. You meet me that way. I, for the love of God, cannot understand why you'd expect me to be any different just because I take on your last name, personally, right? And I believe that what some of that expectation might be when we now get to marriage is as a result of the foundations that we have been setting for ourselves, or the way and manner in which anybody comes into our lives and then meets us, and what they would then expect out of that. Because I mean, when I was single, there are people who come to me, oh, I like you. Oh, can we, maybe there's a future here. I don't want a wife who works. That, yeah, we're not going anywhere. Period. Like, already I know you are not for me. I am not for you, because I got to go somewhere in my life. I remember even with my husband, when we're dating, I had that conversation to say, you know what? I'm a go-getter. I'm a very passionate person. You're not going to get in the way of that. Can we just agree? Yes or yes? Right. And here we are today. Right. So, to what degree do you think that being a young single lady is a great place to lay the foundation for yourself and where you want to go with your career, so that you're not running into
mm,
troubles when you eventually do get married and start
mhm,
having kids?
mhm.
How did you lay the
Well,
foundation?
for well, for me, I've always, the thing is, oh God, that I don't want to take the credit, because there are a lot
Mhm.
of things that added to this. There are a lot of people that kind of breathe life into this, and then there is a God factor too. So for me, before I got married, as young as I was, like I could just remember that I knew I didn't have a specific thing that I wanted to do, but I knew I was gonna do things. I just knew I, the way I am wired, I have to have something doing. I have to do something. So then I started working like as young as I think 16 or 15. I would follow my mom. I would follow my mom to her. My mom is a nurse, is a community health worker. So sometimes when they are doing all this immunization stuff, they need extra hands and then they will pay. So then I'll follow her to to do all these things, and then I get paid, even though she'll keep the money and say she's keeping it from me. To today, we still don't know where the money is.
She'll give it to your children. Don't worry, it's for her grandchildren.
Yeah, I hear you now. I hear you. Anyways, so I've always known that I was going to work. I've always known that I was going to do something. And at the same time, I was super conscious of not losing that foresight. So most times when I'm thinking about my life or I'm thinking about myself in the future, it has to be it has to be something directed towards a goal that I have in mind, if that makes sense. Um, so that any other thing that comes along the way is going to adjust to it. So
Right.
even when I was in other relationships and stuff, it's it's a different thing if I don't have a foundation, if I don't have a balance, and then someone new is coming, they can easily give me something. But
Right.
because I had something to work with, it was more of a collaboration. So even dating and stuff, it was more of a collaboration because you're not meeting me half. Oh God, I'm trying not to go biblical on this.
It's
I'm trying not to
okay
go
for you have
biblical on
to.
this.
I believe
I
I'm
I
sure by now it's an
really
open secret that we're Christians. So
yes. I really hold dear to that word of the Bible that talks about two becoming one. And that is because in my head, it didn't say half and half becomes one. It's a whole, it's two. One becomes
absolutely.
one. Yeah.
Mhm.
So in my head, I'm trying to make sure I'm a whole person. So when I'm becoming one with someone, I'm not making the person lesser or making myself lesser to feel. We have to be one. So with that being said, I was always super conscious of myself. I was always super conscious of where I was going to, what I wanted to do. I have a plan. I'm a visual person, so I'll always write down plans and write down things. Even though they sound lofty, I will just write them down because those are things that help me keep track. So then when I meet someone or I'm in a relation with someone, I let them know that this is what I have in mind. These are the things I want to do. And then they will let me know what they want to do, and then we would collaborate. Now, I cannot, I cannot imagine, I just can't imagine not having something or not having a drive, not having a goal as a human being, not even as a woman, just as a human being. Oh my goodness. What are you doing? I just can't imagine it. Just the thought of that makes me feel sad. Like as a
Mm.
human being, there should be something driving it. There should be a vision you have in mind for yourself as a person, period. There should be a goal. There should be either career wise, either business wise, something that you want to do, something that you're looking at doing. And then when
Yeah.
you now eventually meet someone, there should be a cohesive collaboration, which is why you have to be careful who you end up with. Because they could either, my mom would say, they could either make you or scatter everything. So no matter how
Yep.
much you think you have everything figured out, you could end up with someone and then the whole wall of Jericho starts crashing down.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to be very careful again for all the yet to be married people out there.
Yeah. No,
We
absolutely.
have to
And
be very
that's
careful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. That's very beautiful because you have to first of all have your own vision, right? And you have to have your own foundation, and you have to have something that you're already building towards. And I think that that's key because, like you said, and I really love what you said about that, it's a whole person and a whole person becoming one, right? It's not half and half. It's not a quarter and a quarter. Like you have to have something. And especially in today's world where, we're even starting to see a shift from
Mm.
there are more men who are also now looking for women who are ambitious as well, right? And if that's the case, then I mean you don't want to even put yourself in the situation where it's like you're waiting for this Prince Charming knight how do they say that thing? Right? Knight in shining
Mm.
armor coming to
Amor.
save you
Yeah.
from all your economic troubles. It's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening. And so even just we talk a lot about freedom and rights for women and all that. It makes it harder for somebody to want to trample on your rights when you first of all know what that right is, and you yourself are in the right when it comes to your own career and your own life, right? And so it really just we lay that foundation not when we get married, but before we do, right? And like I said before that, by the time I was 22, I had completed my youth service corps. And being 22, I know how pushed and driven I was. I'd be out there pounding the streets, literally pounding the streets, looking for a job, knocking door to
Me
doors.
too.
This was in Lagos, Nigeria, right? So
Yeah,
just to
me
give you a
too.
good
Oh my
picture, for a
goodness.
brief period, I was in Port Harcourt. It wasn't
Yeah.
working out. I told my family, you know what? I'm heading back to Lagos. I also have family there. I moved back to Lagos, and I was pounding doors and I was selling Zobo just to
Mm-hmm.
just to get the money for transportation.
Yeah.
I
My
was
mom
waking
was
up
even so worried because she thought she had done something wrong. And that's the reason why I left the house and I'm in Lagos and what has she done wrong? I said, Mom, you've not done anything wrong.
Yeah,
I
I guess
just
it's
want
a
to
thing.
find
My family
something
could
to
not for
do.
the life of them understand. I remember at one point, one of my aunties said, "Are you starved in this house? Don't we give you food?" I'm like, "You don't get it. I just want to work."
No.
I have a sense of purpose. So it really
Mm-hmm.
just starts there. So for a lot of people who may not be married already, and you're saying, I just want to finish school and get married to one rich dude. No, be your own rich dude, right? It really just helps. The point there being, have a vision for your own life. Nothing beats that. And then start to build, regardless of who is in your life or not. Let them meet you at something. It's better than nothing, right? And so that anything else they're bringing, it just adds to you, right? And whatever you have adds to them, and not just with nothing, right? So let's talk about growth then, because it's one thing to eventually get into a career space. How do women navigate growth? Especially, maybe I probably need to also answer this one as well, especially when you're now starting to get to that phase where you realize that, okay, kids are getting in the picture, and boy, oh boy, that can be very exhausting. I remember, even after having my daughter in Nigeria, my daughter was born in Nigeria, and when I was in this dream job of mine, Nigeria labor is cheap. So I had a living nanny for one child. I had a living nanny, and then um I had a domestic help at the same time. Now that I say it out loud, I see how spoiled I was. But I mean,
Yeah,
you listen,
you're
you don't
sounding
judge.
privileged.
Yeah, I was privileged, I guess. Privileged. That's the word, right? I had a living nanny, and then I had a domestic help. And my living nanny was supposed to be with me for just 1 year. It was just so that, until my kid was old enough for daycare, and then I can start taking her off to daycare and all that. But coming into Canada, that was a whole different ballgame, because in Canada, now I had a child that was an infant, and I was pregnant, and then eventually had a toddler and had an infant. And no living nanny, just me and my husband and whatnot. And I'm saying this to help set a context, which is that I understand how very difficult it can get when people are trying to, at that point, nobody is probably wanting to think the next level in their careers. But I don't think that that will be a good move for you. It's okay to still at least think about it. At the very least, what I would recommend and advise a lot of women to do is, at that level, at the very least, figure out what you're going to need for that next level that you're targeting. And then use that time as a preparation time. But whatever you do, don't just do nothing, right? And so for me, even in this period, I was working with, I didn't get mat leave in Canada either. I know it's like, maybe I should just do one more just so I can get the full picture. Mat leave it. I'm just kidding. I am done, very done. And eventually, when my son was a couple months old or so, about a year old, I started my master's degree, and I was still working. Why I did that to myself, in hindsight, I will never know, but I did it. But one of the things that, as I look back and as I reflect back, especially for immigrated women, immigrated professional women, that's a story that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. You've got kids, you're working, you're schooling, and you're doing all of these things full time, right? And so it can really just get in the way of not wanting to just go beyond that. So one of the things that I think that we can do in those seasons to really just navigate is to, first of all, one, just be realistic with what you can and cannot do. Be realistic with what you can and cannot do. I knew my limits, and I walked up to a certain point and I stopped and I went back into retail. I always talk about how my first job, I worked in McDonald's, and then I moved into more of a blue collar, white collar, whatever you want to call it, whatever color of color I was, job. But then I started this master's program, and then I realized that a full-time 8 to 5 is not going to cut it for me right now. And so I went back into retail. And a lot of people don't know this, but I actually went back to work with a Dean's. Why? Yes, I worked in a Dean's in Northgate Mall. And I did this because I realized that I realistically just could not do the 8 to 4 fully with infants, toddler, and then
In
full-time
school.
studies. And I was crazy enough to take like 5 classes per semester.
Mm.
So I just wanted to be done in good time and be done, done, done. And I also had an internship I was looking forward to, which would also require me to work 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I wanted to make sure I covered as many coursework as possible before that internship hit so that I can stay more focused on work. So be realistic. So you see that even in all of those seasons, the internship was like a year away from when I started. But even in through all of that, there was intentionality to say, what can I chew per time? Okay, I can take 5 classes. And I started the 5 classes working full-time job, right? But after a while, it became apparent this is not going to work. I stopped the work, went into retail because that allows me to, one, take my kid to pre-K, build my work schedule around my kids and my classes. And when I'm on holiday, I will work like crazy to raise a little bit more cash and then reduce the hours again when classes resume. So it was a cycle because one of the questions I tend to get a lot from people is, how do you manage time? How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you? And truth be told, and you were saying that I don't want to take the credit, and I don't want to take the credit. I honestly do not want to, right? At the end of the day, honestly, it really still comes down to the grace of God. But the way that the grace of God sometimes shows up is that it gives you wisdom. And the wisdom that was given to me is that I was able to then say, okay, realistically, what can I handle? That's number one. Number two, what can I do differently to allow me to embrace all these different aspects of my life? And what that looked like was probably less money, for flexible hours of work that I can control. And so I took that. So what needs to change? Those are questions that people need to ask. When people say you can't have it all, when they even say you can't have it all, first of all, there's this, for me, I feel like that's a fallacy because it's coming from a faulty thinking of that you can simultaneously do every single thing out at the same time. No, that's not what having it all really means. It means that if I look to your health, you're functioning optimally as you ought. It doesn't mean that you're going to be working out exactly at the same time as you're eating. No. It means that if I look to your finances, you're at least thriving in the way that I would expect someone at your level to thrive, or that within the goals that you have set for yourself, you're thriving, right? It means that if I look to your family or whatever it is that there is wholeness in your life. Basically, that's what it is, wholeness, right? And so really just because a lot of women who are in that space where they have infants, maybe they have infants and toddlers, and maybe in my case, I had an infant and a toddler. For some people, it's an infant and 2 toddlers, or 3 toddlers all at the same time, or maybe even 4, maybe 5. Like once you've gone beyond 2, you're a superhero in my world, right? And so just really being intentionally realistic. What can I handle per time? And when you figure out what you can handle, what can I shift in this season? But while you're in that season, also ask a very vital question. How do I make sure that I'm positioning myself for the next level that I want to be at when all this is over? I see a lot of women go on mat leave and then they just chill. And that's okay. That's good. Please chill. You're already doing a lot. You've carried a human being for 9 months and all of that. But at the same time, because again, when we talk about career gaps, right? At the same time, you want to be able to make sure that you're very intentional in how you're positioning yourself. I like the word you use, which is that you're being even more strategic now, right? You have to be strategic, whether it's at the pregnancy level, at the at the maternity level, or when you have infants. When at some point for me, it was that I was almost making money and paying it off to daycare at some point in my life, because then we didn't have 299 daycares. I was making the money and just pumping it to daycare. Why? Because in my mind, that money that I was making, that I was giving off to daycare, was what was giving me the opportunity to ensure that I had no career gap that I desperately needed at the time. Right. And so it's also understanding and then being realistic and then understanding what needs to give, because something might need to give. When you now understand what needs to give, then be willing to give it, or otherwise. But whatever you do, make sure that you're making that very informed thoughts or decision around what that is. So for a lot of women who are in that space where maybe you're thinking, okay, I have kids, how do I navigate this? What do I do? That will be my word of advice to you. Is there anything you want to add to that, Kofo? We can talk about one more thing, then we can be done.
Yeah. Nothing really. Oh, you were just talking, and I think I had a conversation with you early this year. I don't even have a maternity leave yet, but I have a plan for the maternity. I have a plan for the maternity leave that is nothing is happening. There's no child yet coming in, like, but then I have a plan. And that's
Yeah.
because I try to do a little bit of a projection of where I want to be. And
Mm.
whatever space I'm in right now, that I'm going to get in right now, has to have something to add towards where I want to be. So again, I feel like most times it's about planning and just being strategic. And I know that there's sometimes where you have all these plans and unforeseen circumstances will just happen. All that
Mhm.
is like understandable. Those are, we are living this thing called life. And so life is very unpredictable. Things will happen. But why am I going biblical? But anyways, just to kind of say that let's try and have a plan. Let's try and have some strategy in place, especially if you have a goal for yourself as to where you want to go to. Yeah. I was actually gonna say something else. Maybe I'll let you finish the last questions.
Okay. No, now I want to hear it.
Oh no.
It might be tied to the last question already. Who knows?
No, oh, okay. So I was just thinking, also around Mother's Day, and then sometimes it makes me think about women that are looking to have kids, that they don't have kids, either because of choice or because of medical reason, and
Mhm.
just how they feel. Somebody brought my attention to something at the workplace where it feels like anytime there is vacation needs or something, they are put behind because they don't have kids. And then the women that have kids are given more preference and stuff
Mm.
around that. And it just got me thinking, oh my goodness, like I never saw it that way as to how they feel
Mm.
during Mother's Day and around like all this kind of leave that people can take, adjusted time. They
Mm.
allow, which we are all grateful for, that they are, some workplaces allow women that have kids have adjusted time. So maybe instead of resuming 8, you resume 8:30, leave the work 4:30. But then for the ones that don't have kids, if I don't know, when the person said it, I felt sad. Like, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. I never thought of it that way as to how they feel during Mother's Day. But anyways, I just hope that whoever might be in a situation like that, honestly, I don't even know what to say. But I would I would say that I hope you have someone or something that is an outlet for you to let all these feelings out.
Mm.
Just even for a start, you don't need to bottle it in and feel sad by yourself. You can have a conversation. I hope you have someone that you can have that conversation with around how Mother's Day make you feel. Because I'm pretty sure it's probably hard on some people. But
Mhm.
yeah, just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, no, and that's fair, quite frankly. I mean, that's a very fair perspective. And I think that even being in the workplace, I've heard that too a couple times where it's like if I have to take time off for anything else, like it might be harder compared to somebody who say, oh, my kids have XYZ, and then there's all those adjusted times and whatnot. But I think that regardless of who, I might be wrong, most workplaces I have been at, people take adjusted time for all manner of things and it's been okay, right? Personally, maybe I haven't paid attention because it's not the shoes that I'm wearing, and I would fully acknowledge that, right? But just thinking through some of the places that I've been at, in fact, there have been times that there are people who would even get more of that adjusted time than even you when you come up with the excuse of my kids have something. I've actually been turned
Yeah.
down personally before to say, well, your kids have sports is none of my business. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
had that.
Yeah.
And statistically, historically, that has been the unfortunate reality for a lot of parents, and not even just maybe
Mm-hmm.
mothers now, but a lot of parents in general, right? And I think the world is just trying to now adjust itself for all that. The world is trying to now adjust itself for all that injustice over the years.
Yeah.
Now, are they
Yeah.
tilting to the other extreme? Possibly. So maybe what we then need to do is have conversations. I mean, you're the HR professional. So in your HR
On
world, you guys talk about it
honestly
and
though,
tell us
I
what you
I
want us
see
to
I'm
do.
seeing the difference. I'm seeing the difference. Most
Yeah.
organizations now
Mm,
have adjusted time for everybody. At
yeah.
least for some of the organizations that I know, It's now
Mm-hmm.
adjusted time is available for anybody, whether
Yeah.
you have a child
Yep.
or you don't have a child,
Mm-hmm.
you are free to adjust your time, which I
Yep.
felt like, oh yeah, that's fair
Yeah.
enough. That's good
Yeah.
enough, you know.
Yeah. When I
So
worked
I
at
can
Frank Credit
see,
Canada, there were a
yeah.
lot of people who had adjusted time and nobody cared what your reasons were. I had adjusted time. I resumed work at 9 and I end at 5:30. Yeah. 9 to 5:30. Right. And over time, I just realized personally, like, you know what? I can't do this early morning. So like for the last 3 or 4 jobs that I held, even when I was in provincial government start time is 8. I resumed 8:30. For the
Mhm.
longest time, I always resumed work 8:30. Everybody understood that. And in some other instances, I might do a half-hour break and then take the other half-hour early and leave early. Like you'd have those and if I tell you that was all just because of kids, I'll be lying. No, because my kids had a system. We had a system. They go from home to daycare and then from daycare to school and school back to daycare. And we're not expected back to pick them up until 6 p.m. It wasn't even really just because of them. It was just, it's what made sense for me in my life, period. And I feel like I would have probably made the same ask if I was married or single or whatever, because I understood what I needed for my life, right? Again, back to
Mhm.
you know what you can and cannot handle. I know what works for you and doesn't work for you, right? So I think that if there are even people who are not married, who don't have kids, and you feel like you need an adjusted time, first sit with yourself to understand why you feel like you need that adjusted time for whatever reason, and then go and have that conversation with the manager. A lot of workplaces are getting a lot more flexible these days because COVID has taught us a lot of lessons, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, it's a great perspective, quite frankly. And yeah, you know, anyway, yeah, we just all need to be more sensitive, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we have about just 5 more minutes. So in 5 minutes, let's just talk about very quickly, why do you think women are afraid to uh um make a push for themselves when it comes to career growth or maybe even negotiations, whatever it is? And what are some things that, from your perspective, what are some tools you'll share or tips you'll share with women to learn how to just um, make the most that they need for themselves, to just put
Mhm.
themselves, their careers um, forward if they want to,
Yeah.
for those who want to, at least that are struggling to.
I think one of the reasons why it might be a little bit difficult for women to do that is I feel like it's fear.
Mm,
The fear of the fear of how would this look like when I bring this forward, the fear of losing what you currently have, the fear of being perceived as too much, the fear
mm,
of being seen as just, just be grateful for what you have. That false sense
mhm.
of be contented with, at
Yeah.
least you have, just
Mhm.
stay. So
Right.
that fear sometimes would want to hold us back from moving forward,
Mm,
from trying to get that next level job or trying to ask for a promotion and stuff. Just
mm,
basically fear. I think I'm going to bucket it up in fear. Just
mm,
fear of a whole lot of things happening that would be to our detriment. Um, One way that I feel like we can help ourselves or help you can help yourself if you're trying to look at getting a promotion or something. I would say, and this honestly depends on the kind of person or the kind of organization you're working at. But
mm,
I would usually advise people that once you start in an organization, have a conversation with your manager about your career goals from the get-go. Let them know what your career goals are.
yeah.
So that when you bring up conversations in the next 1 or 2 years, they are not surprised.
Mhm.
A good manager should expect you to even have that conversation. So that's
Absolutely.
one way to even know that you have a good manager. They would sometimes even ask you, what are your career goals? What do you want to do? What professional development do you want to do? Something. So I would say from the get-go, have a conversation with your manager about your career goals. And then when it's time to now ask or move, ah, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The fear would hold you back from a lot of things. And if fear can hold you back from what you really want, then I will advise you choose the opposite of fear. Like nothing should be able to hold you back. If that thing is what you really want, that's advancement, that new job is what you really want, don't let fear hold you back. fear of whatever it is. Don't let it hold you back. If there is anything you are not sure of, ask questions, seek advice, seek counsel, talk to a mentor, talk to a coach to help you strategize towards it. But don't be the reason why you don't have it. If someone should ask you, oh, why didn't you get that job, or why didn't you, the, the reason should not be you.
Yeah.
The reason should not be you. Try not to be the reason. Try not to be, oh,
Yeah.
it's because I no, it shouldn't be
Yeah.
because you. It should be something else that was
Right.
out of your reach. And I hope that God helps us all. But yeah, I will stop talking.
Hey, no, awesome. That's great. I really love that. You shouldn't be the reason you don't advance. You shouldn't be the reason you didn't. It shouldn't be because of something you could have done but didn't do, or shouldn't have done but then you did. It shouldn't be because you failed to put in the application, or because you failed to put up your hands, or because you failed to offer your services, or because you failed to put yourself out there. It shouldn't be because of anything that was within your control to do, right? And it shouldn't also be just because of you know, I wasn't sure how this was going to impact my family. Have the conversation with the family first. How about have the conversation, right? If the kids are too little, then have the conversation with your spouse and say, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Here's an opportunity. Here's how I think it might impact us as a family. What do you think? And again, this is where now then maybe having a good partner comes in. And I understand that not everybody's married to a saint. I get that. But if you by chance are married to one, then have that conversation. And even if you feel like you're not married to one, have the conversation and try to help them see the value add to your family. And then, hope for the best from there. But the key thing there is that it shouldn't be because you didn't do something you could have done, but did not do. All right. So thank you so much, Kofo. In wrapping up, we're going to wrap up the session. I don't think there are any questions anywhere. So in wrapping up, we're just going to, just very quickly, succinctly just say this, that for women, we are women. We're women in business, we're women in career. I've been in politics, and we're women who are in other different spheres. You've heard about, we're both authors, so we're in the creative space as well. And we actually both did Girl Child together to Akafo. We really have a lot of history. We actually both did Girl Child together too. So there's a lot of things that we honestly do. And I know that not everybody would do everything. This is not about doing a lot. This is about being true to who you are and who you've been created to be and who you've been called to be. So one of the first things I want you to do as a woman is have a vision for your life. What is your vision? I don't care where you are right now in your phase of life, married, single, unmarried, with kids, no kids. It's never too late to sit down and craft out a vision for your life, right? That's number one that I want you to do, is craft a vision for your life. Number two, articulate your value. Articulate your value. Over the course of life, there are a lot of things that you've done. There's a video we posted recently on Instagram about how a woman would speak to her time in maternity. And I really like that video, right? Because the way she was able to navigate the conversation around how she was taking care of her child and then her team members. And then they asked the question, so why did you spend only 14 months? And she said, because my team can carry on the assignment on their own, meaning her husband can take on where she's left off, and he's taking time off to take care of the child as well, right? And so things like that. Own and articulate your value. Or I guess the third thing really is to own that value. Once you've articulated what do you have in terms of talent, education, abilities. A lot of women have a lot of education under their belt that they're not owning. Once you have all of those things, own it. That's the third thing. Number three, build a strong, very strategic network. Support of people, mentors, coaches, friends, family, people who can help you. When I was going through school with my son and then having my daughter, I have people who sometimes when it gets too much, I will say, you're taking my kids for the weekend. I need to stress out. I need to decompress. I need to rest. I need to catch up on an assignment. I had people were there for me. I've been there for people. So find your own people and don't be afraid to leverage that village, but be also willing to give to them as well, right? And then number four is, or was that number four? Number five is pursue your own learning. Continue to evolve. Continue to build yourself. All right. Continue to build yourself. And don't be afraid to communicate your value where needed. All right. Number 6 that I'm going to mention is learn to advocate for yourself. This is something that a lot of women don't do. I feel like this is even something that needs an entire conversation on its own. Learn to advocate for yourself. There will be no knights in shining armor all the time in form of a sponsor or an advocate, but you're going to need to learn to advocate for yourself. I remember when I had to stand up for myself to a senior leader in government. It was not even funny. My legs were almost hitting each other when I was talking to this person. But I knew that I had to give this person benefits of doubt. It was either the person was downright racist or just had zero clue, self-awareness, how their actions were impacting me. I had to walk into that office, ask to talk to the person, had the conversation, and then I found out it wasn't anything, it wasn't as crazy as I thought it was in my head. There was some cray-cray in there, but it wasn't as crazy as I'd painted the picture. But what if I never spoke up for myself and I saw different outcomes, right? So what if I never did? Learn to advocate for yourself. And then very closely to your vision, have clear goals. Set clear goals. Don't be afraid. Stretch yourself sometimes. Sometimes we think we can't until we can or until we have to, right? I remember everybody thought I was crazy when I chose to do 5 classes per semester. I mean, in hindsight, I really was crazy, right? But guess what? I still finished with a distinction, right? And I set goals to say I wanted to finish, actually, I wanted to finish with greater distinction. I fell short, but I still finished with a distinction, right? And so at the end of the day, I set those goals not because I want to be able to brag about it, although it's nice when I hear myself say it, but because but because I really just wanted to stretch myself. When I was setting those goals, here's what I didn't know, that a lot of scholarships were going to come my way because I would naturally just always be above the required grade points. And I didn't know, I wasn't setting those goals because I wanted to pursue scholarships, but I would sometimes get emails forwarded to me from our course advisor saying, hey, with your grade point, I think you qualify for this. You should consider applying for this scholarship and this scholarship. And I didn't, 40% of my school fees came from scholarships, right? But what if I never stretched myself? I would never have had that, right? And, one of the things that one of my mentors told me in the workplace as well one time was to learn to put up your hand for the work that nobody else wants. Those are the ones that stretch you. And then finally, prioritize your well-being and set healthy boundaries. Because in all of this, believe me, there are days that, especially now that I don't have an 8 to 5, there are days that it gets too much. I'm staring at a screen all day, either doing business or talking to people or facilitating a training session, and it feels too much. Guess what? I just crawl into my back office, which is my bedroom, literally behind me, and I just take a really nice long nap. When my body tells me we're done, we need to rest, I listen to it. So prioritize your well-being because we still need our health as much as possible. And don't be afraid to take on the space that you need to take on. Kick imposter syndrome out because you are created for more. So I really hope that this session has helped anybody. For any last words before we go?
None from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. And this will be here up on our Instagram page. It'll be on the YouTube channel as well. So feel free to come back to it. Feel free to share with others. If you're not following us yet, please follow us on Instagram, on YouTube, subscribe to our channels. It's Advanced and Fulfilled. And we're also on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much. And we will see you next month. Bye.
Yeah.